blurry.
It's also informed by the need to save costs and reduce legislative time.
Then there are the actors, right at the center, coming through political processes, which could be dramatic.
To be a state of this if Parliament does not raise this money.
And controversial.
If driving to the roads is engaging in the macabre, compatibility is that of government.
And there's you to help connect the dots from the top to the bottom. Join Rotimi Sankore and Arogo Obo at the Public Square every Friday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is the Public Square.
Welcome back on 99.3 Nigeria Info. This is the Public Square, and we have a special episode of the Public Square today, and it's the independence anniversary for Nigeria, and we have a group of panelists in today's Public Square special, where we will look at a number of issues about Nigeria's independence. And then we'll have some big talk about just exactly what is going to happen today. All right. So we'll first and foremost, I let you know that this is being streamed live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. And, of course, you can listen to us live on 99.3 Nigeria Info on YouTube. Nigeria Info FM on Facebook as well as on YouTube, where you can watch this special happen. So, before we get into the panelist, which is a fantastic group of people here, Chido Onuma, Aisha Osori, Richard Mama, and Indy Kato, which form our panelists. Rotimi Sankore, data and development expert, is my co-host also on Public Square. We're going to look at the president's speech briefly. I don't know if Rotimi is already up online. We can get Rotimi's assessment quickly of the speech before we then delve into the other aspects of today. Is Rotimi in there now? Okay. If we do get in Rotimi, we'll probably get his assessment of the speech. But we have our panelists already set and up and ready to go. Once again, Chido Onuma, thank you very much for joining us on the Public Square today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Always
I hope
a pleasure.
you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, Chido. It's always a pleasure having the opportunity to interact with you. And Chido will let you into a lot more of the work he does. I'm sure you know the brilliant mind Chido represents. Aisha Osori, thank you very much also for joining us on the Public Square. Aisha.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. And Indy Kato, thank you very much for joining us also too on the Public Square. Indy Kato, if you can hear me, just kindly respond.
I can. Yes, okay. Service just got back. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So we have Chido Onuma, Aisha Osori, and Indy Kato join us. Richard Mama joins us. Mama also joins us in the studio live here. Thank you very much for joining us, Richard Mama.
Thank you.
Excellent. I hope you didn't have too much wahala getting down here.
you get it some of the time.
That's a lot of construction coming into the island. You probably would think because of the public holiday, you won't have that happen. But lo and behold, even on public holidays, Lagos appears busier than on working days. But thank you very much for joining us, Richard Mama.
Thank you.
All right. The first question will go to Chido Onuma. Chido Onuma, you curated and edited the book 60 Years, 60 Voices. And the most obvious question will be, why did you put this book together, Chido?
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, Nigerians. Happy Independence. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel and to celebrate our country even in the midst of all the challenges and difficulties. Basically, and first of all, before I say anything about the book, I have to thank the contributors, but because without them, two of them are here, Andy Kato and Richard Mama. Without them, we wouldn't have had the book. And of course, the wonderful support through the Open Society of West Africa, led by Aisha, or used to be by Aisha Osori. Basically, the idea behind the book was to reflect on 60 years of independence, to assess how far we've come as a nation, what we need to do, and then how we need to achieve those things. The first idea that went into that conversation was to say that we know those who have brought us to this sad path. We weren't going to go to them for solutions. If we want to change Nigeria, we have to turn to the young people, the critical age change agents. We can't solve the problem. Those who have created this problem are not likely to be the ones to solve it. So that was the obvious reason we decided to focus on young people, people with fresh creative ideas of what needs to be done. We've done one part of it, which is putting the ideas on the table. The next part is how do we then achieve this idea? So to answer your question directly, the reason for focusing on young people for doing this was to get young Nigerians who are in a position to bring about the kind of change this country requires. And when you talk about change, you've seen the change that certain people brought 6 years ago. And so it's not just about change for change's sake.
Right.
So, yeah, I hope that addresses the question.
Absolutely, it does address the question, Chido. And it's a brilliant panel we have here. Chido is joined also by Aisha Osori. All of them have a line that connects them. Journalists, development experts for several years have contributed their 50 kobo, like I will say, to the country's development and narrative. Aisha, we've spoken with you a couple of times, and it's a pleasure to have you also join us again on this special panel. I'm sure that you are, will I say that you are shocked or fascinated with the discussions by politicians in the midst of growing insecurity, Aisha, that we face in the country. The governors from the north and the south are more interested in where the president will emerge in 2023. Will you say that we have our priorities skewed, and how big is this a problem in understanding our priorities as a people, Aisha?
Thank you. Let me just say, yes, happy Independence Day to everyone in the room and also to those who are listening, even though I know many people think there's nothing to be happy about, but as long as there's life, there's hope. So we remain positive about what the future can hold. I have to say, thinking about your question, my immediate thought is problem for who? Who is the problem for? Because I don't think it's a problem for the governors and the political class. They are fine. And this is the way they've always done things. So no, I'm actually not surprised. The conversations that we're having now are the conversations we've always had. I had cause to read IBB's speech, I think in August of 1985. His justification for taking over from the Buhari Dearborn regime and everything he described, he could be talking about today. Although today is much worse than then, but here we are. So there are three reasons why I'm not surprised about the conversations that are happening between the governors, whether it's thinly veiled attempts to restructure by any means necessary, whether it's because whether it's about where power should go to in 2023 and maybe even beyond. And these are the three reasons I'm not surprised, because there are three things that have always dominated Nigeria's political economy since even well before independence, and we've stayed true to that. The first is political equity, meaning, how do we balance our 389 ethnic groups and nationalities, but of course dominated by the big three, or maybe we say the big four, if we split the Hausa and the Fulani into two separate groups, since they're not the same. So that's what that political equity, how do we share this power, is one of the things that we've been contending with since before independence. The second one is tied to the first, is national stability and political succession. Again, every time there's now, we're in a election cycle where where the incumbent is not running, where the incumbent is, legally barred from recontesting. Then we have an opportunity for political succession, and we become obsessed with that, which is why, we're talking about north or south and which way we should go. So, and that's the second reason. And the third reason is political ethics and the containment of corruption. We're also constantly obsessed with this fighting corruption problem. Meanwhile, corruption keeps, hardening. So you can even hear that in the banter, underline the banter between a popular video that's been going around between Wike and Akpabio, and about the Southeast Road and all that. Underlying that subtext is who does what with public resources. So I think that we're all in the grips, including the average Nigerian. And of course, I put the predominant blame on the political class and the elite. They bear the burden of the blame. But I would say we all have a role to play, even the average Nigerian. And that's a complete failure of imagination of how our country should be. And what we should be focusing on. So no, I'm not surprised. This is what, if you listen to the conversations of younger people on social media, they too are as obsessed as the older crowd, as the governors, in terms of where power will go. And so I think, there's really work to be done. I'm still hoping to be pleasantly surprised. My sense, as we move to the anniversary of EndSARS that happened last year, October 20th, that the movement, the inspiration, the excitement, and the, how we felt all motivated in terms of how we had come together, just watching the young people come together to take a stand about their country, that feeling hasn't died. It's just gone on the ground to sort of regroup and come back even stronger and wiser. That's my sense. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Aisha. And those of you who just joined on 99.3 Nigeria Info, it's our Nigeria 61 special. And we have, as you had Aisha story, you had Chido Onuma earlier on. You haven't had yet from Richard Mama, as well as Indicato. But you can send in, we'll open the phone lines later on the show. But if you want to get quickly to the tracks, you can quickly send your questions or comments on WhatsApp 0809 597 5805. Again, 0809 597 5805. And then we're streaming this live on Facebook as well as YouTube. Comments and questions, if I see them there, I will take them also too. Richard Mama, you've been there for a while, for several decades, an analyst, a journalist, a veteran for several years also too, and you've seen how this country has moved from decade through decade with the challenges. We joke on the street that everything in Nigeria, when it goes up, never comes down. And one of those things that goes up and hardly comes down is poverty as well as unemployment. How serious is this as a problem for us 61 years after liberation from the colonial overlords? Is this from your perspective?
Thank you very much. And I join with others to commend Nigerians. We are commemorating our 61st anniversary.
Right.
We had hoped it would be in more pleasant circumstances, but we are taking what we have in the hope that we will get what we want.
Right.
Yes, I think you are spot on. The truth about nations is that even before Adam Smith wrote his Wealth of Nations, people have been able to see how growth happens. And so when you now have a productive workforce, when you have a productive workforce, when you have an engaged workforce, you have a best and a better chance, of having a prosperous society, in that sense. So that when we now talk about what some of the main problems of the nation, as it were, we have to tie it to how much we are incentivizing our population in that sense to be productive.
Right.
So if you have 33% and counting, unemployment, rate, which is 1/3 of the population, if you use of the working population, if you use those numbers, and then you now have a higher segment of youth unemployment, which goes to almost about half, 50% and thereabout, that you have a crisis on your hand. Any unemployment figure that goes beyond, say, 3 to 8%,
right,
I started getting to crisis proportions. Then when you talk about 33, then you means you have a crisis, because what happens is that feeds into crisis, that feeds into insecurity, that feeds into depression, nostalgia, and a sense of frustration that builds into other issues. So it's a crying thing. One economist put it this way: he said it is better to pay a man to dig up wells and fill them back again, continuously, than to have him unemployed. Right. Because the idle mind is the devil's workshop. So when somebody gets up in the morning and has nothing to do, then you have a crisis that you are building on your hand. Now you also have the twin, which is poverty. Literally half the population cannot feed. And this is also being fueled by other indices. We are an import-dependent nation. Meanwhile, and we import using forex. The exchange rate has been screaming, it's been swearing, so which very well means that poverty has been expanding. Real purchasing power has been dropping. So you now notice that you have a compounded crisis. Then you now have unemployment. And you have some of the other shenanigans, as in, for example, the fastest growing segment of the population is that which is connected to ICT. Right. But in banning Twitter, or rather in punishing Twitter, we were actually punishing our economy, because if the only double digit growth engine of your economy is ICT related, and then you are now knocking that sector for what many will call a familiar affair, in that sense, something you resolve out of court, in that sense, So it's actually a crisis of governance, it's a crisis of structure, and then we still don't have plans and policies properly to deal with demographics. Birth rate is still outstripping growth rate, on a national scale. You have birth rate of about 2.6, 2.8%. The GDP growth rate nationally is still, under 2%, in that sense. So it's not adding up. We are just building, layers of crisis that we need to sit down and have a serious interrogation, as in, we are in trouble, we should stop digging.
Absolutely. Indeed, we should stop digging and find out where those solutions can come from. Indy Kato joins us. Indy Kato, she's got a rich understanding of the country's politics, does analysis. Always a pleasure to listen to Indy Kato when she talks about the issues that affect the country. So Indy, when you look at the different narratives we put out there, Maman just talk now about the unemployment as well as the poverty indices that you look at, the data that continues to rise. Another data you look at oftentimes that there is no change, keeps getting worse, is with the inclusivity, women and youth. We've got a population where the median age is 18. Very young.
More news and information.
Very young population we have, and it's something that I think that we should also talk about. What would you say? Say for if you take the Not Too Young to Run law act, which came into law a couple of just before the 2019 election. For women, we haven't seen anything happen. How does this define the country's democracy when you have youths and women excluded from the process largely?
I would say that our older politicians have failed to see what time it is. If you understand that, Lingo have failed to understand what time it is. We just came out of lunch with an Independence Day lunch with a politician, and the conversation was, oh, they have a hold of where I come from, that is Southern Kaduna. And I said, no, you no longer have that hold. Now, we have a growing youth population. In fact, I do believe that right now, the voting population will be more of youth at the rate we're going by the next election.
Right.
It is more of young people. And we still have political parties. Let's look at the... can you hear me, please?
Yeah, we can hear you, Indy. Please go ahead.
Okay. So let's look at the opposition party, for example. What is the opposition party's claim to the next elections? That they have structures in 774 local governments in Nigeria, right? What are those structures? Those structures are people from 1999 who are still waiting for their turn, people who have been part of this, and they are not allowing young people to enter. Now, that is it. We do not have the investment of young people in politics. And as long as we don't have that investment, whatever it is you're looking for them to save you from, like your businesses and every other thing that you as an older Nigeria who has deep roots in investment in Nigeria want it from, young people are not invested. So if we want to go into the next election season, I don't think telling young people to just come out and vote is enough, right? We need investment. We need young people to feel like they belong in these parties. They belong to this place. They fit in these places. And they are in, like, this party has room for them. They are also making leadership decisions in this party. Just came out with GRV, that's the short form of his name, and saw Demola Olarenwaju for PDP Lagos coming out to run. And I'm happy that, people are coming out to run for things. But will the party give opportunity? Now, if opposition parties are serious, we have said everything about how we feel about the state of the nation right now. So it means that generally we want a change. Opposition parties cannot sit down and think that automatically, like in 2019, right, they are going to get it. It shows that they are not going to get it. So what I want to say specifically about our democracy right now is young people need to feel a sense of ownership. It's not a favor anymore. If the majority of the voters do not feel a sense of ownership, they will either not vote or vote in a transactional way because, well, let me just get what I want right now and move on.
Right.
And if we want to change that, we need to change our democracy. We need to change our politics to fit what they want. Inclusion for them. I don't think it's negotiable at this point. It's not the thing that you have to beg for. If not, all of us will keep on suffering, to be honest.
Absolutely, and great point you make there, Indicato. Interestingly, I was watching at the Eagle Square, the parade, the president reviewing, and they had a female platoon, all female platoon, and they were announcing that this was to show inclusivity. I wish we could have that sort of thing happen in the politics to suggest also too that we're changing ways, not just with the military, but also to in civilian life. So we've gone around the first round of questions for our great panelists this evening on the Public Square 61st Independence Anniversary Special. And the next set of questions, each of the panelists will have 4 minutes max to answer those questions. It's going to border around the president's independence speech. A lot has been said about this speech from all our shows with the Morning Crossfire, all the way till even down for conversations with Ireti Bakare Yusuf earlier on today. And this evening rather, we're going to have our panelists look at that speech also too and tell us something. Just like we asked Ayo, Chido Onuma will take the first question here, which is, Chido, if you listen to the speech or had to read the president's speech, I got 2 questions for you. One, what do you think was left out of that speech that you thought should have been included? And then the other one is, from your perspective, what would you consider to be the number one priority now for the country?
Thank you. I listened to the president. I've also taken time to read the speech. For me, in terms of creating that speech, I didn't think that was a great speech. I don't even know if I can say that was a good speech. It was long on rhetorics and unfortunately short on specifics and ideals of nationhood, considering the situation we found ourselves as a people. I wanted a speech. This is probably one more speech There'll be one more speech before the president leaves after 8 years of being a democratically elected president. And I thought this would have been a great opportunity for him to lay down certain ground rules in terms of both for his own transition, but also his legacy. What are we talking about here? A lot of the things the president said were things that ministers and senior officials in the government would have said. So the issue about Twitter ban, I mean, look at the number of paragraphs that was expended on the National Independence Day message to Nigerians who are suffering, wallowing in poverty. The country is terribly disunited and so on. And But just as Richard mentioned, it's also a government lacks focus, the lack of understanding. I mean, if not for the current face-off with Twitter that happened about 4 months ago, all the things the president reeled out in that speech about taxation and are we going to say they weren't thinking of any of that before? They didn't realize they needed to take advantage of that to boost the economy. But that's where the president didn't talk about the Naira. With the way things are going, the Naira probably will be $1 will be about 1,000 Naira by the end of this year. That's something significant that the president didn't touch on. Pitifully, he talked about our position. He kind of placed us as a beggar nation in the whole question. And I was taken aback when I heard him make the same comment at the UN General Assembly about the distribution of vaccines, when what I wanted to hear was what effort Nigeria was making concretely, not just about investing in pharmaceutical and so on. We've been investing in pharmaceutical research for many years now. What concrete efforts have we made? Some countries in the world, including small island nations like Cuba, made the big transition of producing their own vaccine just within this period of COVID itself. So if we've been investing in pharmaceutical over the years, why couldn't we take advantage of that? And we go to global forums and we're talking about distribution of COVID. We shouldn't be left out in the distribution of COVID vaccines and so on. Then the other question, which for me, and to address the second point you raised about what ought to be the highlights of a speech like this, will be the question of national unity. Not minding what we hear on social media, Nigerians really love their country and they're interested. It's just the way the country, what they are opposed to, what they are against is the way the country is being mismanaged, basically. And I was looking forward to read or listen to a president who would rally around the troops, the country, the citizens, and say, so when you make glib statements like the unity of the country is non-negotiable, what exactly are you talking about? And you do everything, your body language, your actions speak to the fact that you're not interested or you're not working towards the unity of this country. About 38 people, Nigerians, were buried a few days ago. Those who were murdered, I think about a week ago or so. The president didn't make any reference to that. The president didn't pay homage to all the citizens who have been killed in the wanton, murderous acts that have been taking place in the last 3-4 years under his watch. Nothing. You didn't speak to their family, you didn't condole with them, and so on. And you expect people to be happy. Rather, the fixation around the whole question of Sunday Igboho and Nnamdi Kanu and the people who are financing them. If you know those who are financing them, if you think they've committed a crime, get them to face the law and so on. So for me, it really was a very poor speech. It didn't address, and I don't know how this would make any impact in the coming days and months.
All right. Thank you very much, Chido Onuma. Let's get to Aisha Osori here. Aisha, I mean, I remember growing up in those days, back in the days in the military era, even when the speeches were being read, everyone, even from the people who were selling akara on the streets or those who were going but just trying to eke a living, kept saying, we're waiting for the president's speech. And when you listen to the president's speech at the end, you just had a feeling that you've been kicked in the guts. There was really nothing to look forward to, and this has happened over and over again. Did you get that sort of feeling that something was left out of the president's speech, and what you think should be the focus of this president as he winds down? Aisha.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And yes, I think Chido has done a really great job of assessing the president's speech already. And I don't know how many more times we can listen to General Buhari and expect something different. I think the man has told us over and over again who he is and what his capacity is, but we still keep expecting something different. So I think maybe there's something wrong with us. That said, if people are learning to be dismissive of the president's speeches, then, we are learning from our experiences, because we've learned that there's not much that we gain from listening or even maybe from analyzing. But while picking up from where Chido left off, I would say that apart from being quite tone deaf, and I think that summarizes the entire speech. It read like a report card. There were a few places where there was an acknowledgement of the pain and suffering of Nigerians, but not nearly enough, even if it was a symbolic minute of silence, where he would pause in the minute of, to be honest, I didn't watch the speech. I've not watched GMB speeches for years. So I don't know whether it was the usual pre-recorded thing or whether it was a live thing, but
it was pre-recorded.
So even if he paused, those listening, those who had taken the effort to watch or to listen would, pause with him and reflect about the lives that we've bled away, even just this year alone, but he and his handlers are completely bereft of any empathy, completely ignorant of the importance of symbolism. And I have to say, I read the speech with a bit of horror. It was so pedestrian. I was like, who wrote this speech? I'm actually even more taken aback by the quality of the speech, just in terms of how it was written, the way it was written, to just, in my mind, just it buttresses just how mediocre this government and this administration is, and the people who surround the president. And let's not even just say the people that surround the president, but his ability to tap into the talent that I know that actually does exist even in this administration. There are people that would have written a much better speech for him within his administration. But again, it speaks to the fact that we've come to a place where mediocrity is now synonymous with loyalty and trust. So we would rather uphold and keep around people who don't know what they're doing and have no interest in what they're doing, as long as we trust them or we believe that they're loyal to us. So what's missing from the speech? I would say that at least three things. And again, at the risk of repeating Chido's excellent analysis, I just thought, apart from not talking about insecurity in a way that would show that there's some empathy for what is going on across the entire country, even if it's the most latest outrage, and there are many, many outrages, just horrible, horrible stories, but at least the death of Dr. Akuni and the link between, the role he had played and what role his wife has played in national politics. Even just mentioning that one name. I mean, some might say you don't want to make anybody special or elevate anybody, but yeah, just say a few names. There's a reason why, when you hear other presidents speak, whether they mention the names of their citizens, so that it makes people feel like there's an understanding. I think that he also lost the opportunity to talk about the really fragile social cohesion that we have right now in Nigeria and the implications for the development of Nigerians. And even to acknowledge that the fragile social cohesion, the insecurity, are a threat to the investment in infrastructure that he seems so proud of. So in his report card, he's taking time to detail all the things that are being built. Fine. What's the impact of that on people who cannot move around anymore?
Very true.
Because of fear of insecurity, or because of now deepening fault lines where people don't even want to interact with each other. So you're building all these roads for what end if people cannot move around anymore? I also thought he lost the opportunity to talk about the state of our politics, because obviously 2023 is already in play. From within his own party, the different fissures and groups from the opposition as well, from and make a link to that and electoral reform, make a link to that to the conversations about transmission, electronic transmission of votes, you would like to think there are many, many things to be surprised about GMB.
Right.
But one of the most surprising ones for me is that somebody who'd lost elections at least 3 times and who felt cheated those 3 times, I would have thought that one of the things he would be a champion for was more credible elections. That's a lasting legacy of somebody who had felt thwarted by the system. But he's come and he's done his 8 years and we cannot see barely any serious improvement to the way we do politics. So another lost opportunity to say, in the run-up to the elections, here's what we're trying to do, maybe with the Attorney General, with INEC, nothing, just doesn't care.
All right, thank you very much, Aisha. Sorry, it's great. So we can get to Richard Mama, thoroughbred newsman for several decades. I can imagine back in the days, or even today, you would have the newsroom leadership do this called the post-mortem. And this would be a scourging for whoever did this script. And if he came out alive, he would say that he's a journalist worth every single ink on the paper. But tell me something, Richard. You've seen several of these sort of speeches over and over again, whether it really matters or not. But this one, did it cut it for you? And what was missing, you probably thought should have been in the speech from the president, Richard.
Yeah, thank you. I think that straight away the verdict, is not dissimilar from what some of the other members of the panel have, expressed. The speech did not speak to the core essence of what an independence speech should be. Independence is a specific event in the nation's schedule. It's October 1. It happens once every year.
Right.
And it takes us back to the first one in 1960.
Right.
Now, that speech did not, in the first place, put us in sufficient context that 61 years after, this is where we are. Because to put us in context would be to go back to the beginning. There was a story that culminated in independence. There were several conferences to debate and discuss the nature of Nigeria.
Right.
Constitutional conferences and the British, governor generals, and all that. And then between 1950, the Ibadan conference and going on to the year 2000 and all the constitutional conferences and all that. So there was a build-up. Independence was not just an event. It was a process. And that process was built around ideas, that go back to the foundation of the nation. Now, that speech was the first thing it needed to do for it to make sense as an Independence Day speech was to connect us to the foundations of Nigeria, and that was very important. And it was not done, to the measure that we can say this, because if you go back to the fact that at the moment we are discussing issues, even the president referred to it when he was talking about the authorities, preparing to go after financiers, of Kanu and Igboho, for example,
right?
And the tendencies that they represent in the nation. The question you ask yourself is, where did these tendencies come from? Because these tendencies are an expression of tendencies that have been around over time. So by the time you start dealing with them now, don't you think it is proper to connect them to the foundations? So when we talk about this whole fulcrum of national unity, the issue that comes up first is, why was it necessary for Nigeria to be united in the form and shape that it is? And what has happened to that unity project? Where has it gotten cracks? And what can be done about the cracks? So an independence speech should speak to the essence of Nigeria, to the essence of national unity, and to the challenges that the national unity project is facing, on the first place. Then it should also speak to other things as it has to do with the fact about definition. For example, one of the things the speech did was to talk about how we were getting improvements in terms of foreign policy. And I said, I can't find it. I can't find the improvements. The mere fact that an Okonjo-Iweala or an Adesina are holding positions at international fora in itself does not say that Nigeria as a nation has scored major foreign policy, victories. Because the mere fact of holding a passport is not the same thing that Nigeria or of having a skin or an ethnic identity is not the same thing as saying that the nation has got the benefit. So I think it is something that we've got to go back. They say if it's not fixed, if it's not broken, don't fix it. If there was nothing significant and deep and thorough going that the president wanted to say to us, perhaps he could just allow us, have our tea and then move on with our lives. Which brings me to the final point I will just make, on this.
Right.
And I think someone has also, touched on, the outlines of it, which is, this is virtually the president's last independence speech of what? He's done 6 years in office.
Right.
The 7th independence speech is going to make, the next independence speech is going to make, is going to be the speech that is going to fall in the middle of the process of picking candidates that will succeed him. That will be October next year, and by then the parties would have picked their candidates or about to pick their candidates. So it's not going to have the luxury of giving us another independence speech. So in a more fundamental sense, this president will not have any more time to define for us his vision of a great country. I think he just lost the opportunity by not insisting on a more robust presentation, to be done. Because we're talking about legacy. If you don't say to us, what is your vision of Nigeria electorally? What's your vision of Nigeria economically? What's your vision, of Nigeria politically? What's your vision of Nigeria by the end of the next millennium? What other opportunities are you going to have in that sense? So I think it was a poor script. I think it was a poor outing. And I think that they should find the next best opportunity to correct this. And that would mean that they will go back to the drawing table and ask themselves, what kind of country are we presiding over, and what kind of country do our people deserve? Absolutely. Because this is not what the people want.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard Mama. So we can get to Indy Kato straight away. Indy, all the panelists, in fact, most of what I've listened to today from several resource persons across several media forums seems to connect dot with the question about the country's unity. And interestingly, the strongest thing we had from the president's speech was about Nigeria's unity not being negotiable. Let's say sometimes I watch the ceremonies that happen around the Independence Day anniversary, and I see dances from the different tribes. They try to fuse into some sort of song, and to say that is listenable is an understatement. I mean, it's even not watchable. Sometimes I wonder why they don't just play one song from either the Efik or the Urobos or the Hausa, rather than fuse everything into some song and everyone is dancing in some way, like they're trying to force this unity on the different songs by creating an danceable song. But Indy, you represent groups, for example, that have complained about marginalization for some time. I've worked directly with them. Did you see anything wrong with the president's speech in terms of, like Richard says, an opportunity to make a strong point about cohesion and unity? Was that opportunity lost, Indy Kato? Indy Kato, are you still there? All right. If you're there, maybe you unmute your device.
Can you hear me now?
Excellent. We hear you clear now. Please go ahead, Indy.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying that it's a pretense, just like Aisha Osori had mentioned about skipping Akunyili. It's the same way, we lost almost 40 people in my senatorial zone, right? This group of tribes that have come under attack over and over and over again. And Buhari is refusing to acknowledge that it's even happening, right? We have seen him acknowledge when it happens to people from his tribe or his religion. And this was an opportunity, like this was so close to today, and he just did not acknowledge it. Also, Nigeria's unity is negotiable. And it's like, he says it so many times, and people like him keep saying it so many times, like they're trying to convince themselves. It cannot be like, if you said it once, and let it go. But if at every point you have to say it, then at this point you've realized that, okay, look, this thing is negotiable and I have to keep reinforcing it for myself. We have really passed that stage. But it is very disappointing. The dances you mentioned, I know it's really small, but it's supposed to be a small and perhaps funny point. But it points to the oppression of the three main tribes. Because if you check, it to be Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, and then if you get some favor, you can add Tiv people there to do the dance that they want Tiv people to do, the particular dance, and then Urobo at best. The rest of us do not get a say, and that is Nigeria's idea of unity, and it just does not work. Just to point to another thing, since this is my last opportunity, the president still made mention of things that point to the silencing of civil society, silencing of media, still made mention of people who are complaining of the state of the nation and called it hate speech, and still said in a nation where we are having these killings, where the people who are killing have come out to say this is the reason why they are killing, and he's still pointing to social media. It's there. He has said the media, social media, a few people who are spreading hate speech are the reason why we are going through what we are going through in the nation. Now, this is a lot. This is still pointing to shrinking of the civic space. This is still a president refusing to read the room. This is still a president in denial. This is still a president refusing to acknowledge the amount of damage that has been made and still pointing fingers at other places. And it's just disappointing. So I think when we go past the fact that this speech, I won't waste my time actually turning on the TV to listen to this person. But at least I tried to read it because it was obviously written by whoever it was written by. And so still the written version of what would have been presented was on TV is still woeful, does not inspire confidence, does nothing, but makes sure right in there to point to an obsession with the civil war, an obsession with shrinking the civic space, an obsession with silencing voices, activist voices, right at the point where October is now meaning another thing, where young people in the nation are mourning. This is woeful, and Nigerians deserve better.
All right, sorry about that. The wonders of technology. It's a public square, and we have a rich panel here on Nigeria's 61st Independence Day anniversary. I'm sure you heard the president's speech and watched also too. And you saw the military ceremonies that happened afterwards at the Eagle Square. And there's plenty for us to talk about, and of course for you to interact with our panel, Indicato, Richard Mama, Aisha Osori, and Chido Onuma. All four panelists. There's still Rotimi Sankore. At some point he will join us also to have his own say. But is the square, we're going to open the square for you, which is what we do, and allow you to interact with our resource persons. So this is the rule we have here. We'll go the first set of 4 callers, comments, questions. We'll do that in 1 minute each, and then we'll allow the panel respond to those 4 questions. It's questions I'd love to hear from. So on WhatsApp too, the number is 0809 597 5805. Again, 0809 597 5805. Questions and comments, make it short on WhatsApp, and then this panel will respond to the question that you have. Make a short dash across my desk. The number to call 0700 993 993 993. Again, 0700 993 993 993. And then there's a line for you to call female only, 01465 7190. Again, 01465 7190. So let's go and see who is first to the block. Don't forget, 1 minute for each person so that we can accommodate as many people as possible. Hello and good evening.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Great to have you join. Sorry about that. Do call back again. Hello and good evening. Hello and good evening.
Hello.
Great to have you join us. What's your name, please, and where are you calling from?
My name is George. I'm calling from Ikorodu.
All right, George. Let's do this in 1 minute, quickly.
Okay, thank you very much. For listening to the analysts in the studio, your guests in the studio,
right?
I found out that actually they have, touched all the areas that is needed to be touched in this country. Because you see, there's nothing to celebrate. At the 61th year of independence of Nigeria, we cannot count one particular thing that is beneficiary to the people. One, there's no NEPA. We don't have light in Nigeria. Two, we don't have pipe water, which I met when I was growing up. Now go to school and see what is happening in the education sector. There's nothing, to me, as a matter of fact, there's nothing to celebrate. The Naira keep up depreciating every day by day. You can see that now, before, as one said over there, that before the end of the year, maybe $1 will be like maybe 10,000 naira to $1. In fact,
all right, thank you.
Very, very annoying.
Thank you very much. Keep those calls coming in. Hello and good evening. All right, can get through to you. Hello and good evening.
Hello.
Kindly move away from the device you're listening to so we don't get the feedback.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you now. What's your name, please, and where are you calling from?
Good evening. This is Mr. George calling from Awoyaya.
George from Awoyaya. You've got a minute. Very quickly. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. What we are seeing today, their guests have already finished everything. But you look at what is our problem is like, nobody is bigger than this, our entity, Nigeria. You look at what is going on today, it's what our leaders are supposed to call the leaders. Let us deliberate and talk about what will help us tomorrow. It's not about going after people. So everything that are going on today, my brother, if you come outside today, see how people are dying for hunger. It's not about security again. It's not about security again. Hunger is more than anything that a common man can seek for this life. My brother, nothing to celebrate.
Right.
I'm regretting even born for Nigeria. Being
right.
in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, George. You're born here, so we'll have to sit down together and make it work one way or the other. Let's get a third call through. Hello and good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Excellent. Great to have you join us. What's your name, please, and where are you calling from?
Okay. My name is Shegun. How are you, sir?
I'm brilliant, Shegun, and you can go ahead quickly.
Yeah. Brilliant submissions from the panelists or from the panel members. But I guess for me, I've not even listened to the broadcast, and I'm not planning to because, sorry to say, what can you expect from this man again? Fundamentally, I think we got it wrong, all of us, that were part of the process that brought this man in. So I think we should just look to 2023, where there are opportunities to change our fortune as a nation. Clearly, mediocrity, nepotism is the order of the day for this government, and it will not change. So we just hope Nigeria gets it right in 2023. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Shegun. And we'll take the last call before we get back to our panelists here. Hello and good evening. Kindly move away from the device.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. I'll kindly need you to move away from the device so we don't get the feedback.
From the device.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello, great. Please go ahead.
Okay. I expected him to have mentioned the issue of the Fulanis killing farmers, and nothing is done to them. Yet he's talking about middlemen. Who are the middlemen? Where are the foods? There should have been supplies enough before you talk about those who are hoarding the food. In fact, from A to Z, I see nothing in that his speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And don't forget, you send a message also to on WhatsApp, 0809597 5805. Again, 0809597 5805. The next set of questions and comments, I will go to WhatsApp. Richard Mama, I come to you first on this one before I get to the other members of the panelists. Apparently, people have a lot of people think that with the president's speech, the way he went about it, and this sense of disaffection and lack of trust, at least with two of those callers, how how does an elected political office holder deal with this trust deficit in the way people have oftentimes responded to his speech?
Yes. You know, the president is on the spot. And I think he's got to understand that, and those who have access to him have got to help him get it. He's on the spot. He's been head of state of Nigeria in the 80s. In the mid-1980s, he was head of state of Nigeria. He was removed from office, and then he got back after several tries and became president. So nobody expected him to learn on the job. You know, it's a terrain that he ordinarily should be familiar with. So if he does not resolve some of the fundamental issues, you know, of nationhood, you know, which we are yet to address, right, history will not be kind to him. Because he's had 4 decades to prepare for this job. History will not be kind to him. History may be kind to those who passed by the process, but not to those who were over-prepared as he is. Now, so the challenge now is for him to appreciate, and for the nation to also appreciate, what was he preparing for? What nation, what is his vision of Nigeria? Now, the president has to sit one-on-one, you know, and speak to what is my idea of Nigeria, dispassionately. Because maybe we are asking him to do what he is not oriented to doing. Because when I sit on this space, and for several of the callers who called here, they may have an idea of a Nigeria that the president does not have. So we've got to come to honest facts. What is Nigeria to President Buhari? So that we do not shoot in different tangents. Because when he makes statements like the unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable, we've got to come back and ask, excuse me, unity on what terms?
Unity on what?
On what terms?
Terms. Let's get back to the other members of the panel also too. Aisha Sori, if you listen to a number of the callers also too, I hear people talk about one of the callers, I can't remember his name now, talked about the Naira devaluation. So we're fighting the war against, I think it's just terrorism. This thing they say banditry, I don't know what they mean by banditry. I think it's just terrorism on all the fronts in the Northwest as well as the Northeast. Would you say that the Naira, the war against to save the Naira should have found its way in the president's speech in the way the Naira is collapsing to other international denominations, currency denominations?
Well, should it have? Would it have? I mean, those are two different things. I think when I mentioned my sense of the speech is that it was a report card. Obviously, whoever wrote it is very determined to start trying to leave a track record, a legacy of the administration. So, of course, he wouldn't have put that in there. To be honest, I mean, how much detail do you want to put in this type of speech, and what should the speech have focused on? I think the speech should have focused on the future to give people hope. So while he might not have been specific about how the Naira is tanking, you know, even speaking about just the economic hardship that Nigerians are going through, by implication, and saying what he would do to change, he and his team would do to improve things, would by implication have covered that. But to be honest, I actually feel as if, I mean, I know it's Independence Day, but we're spending too much time on the president. I mean, I listened with interest to what the fellow panelist Richard said about asking President Buhari. To be honest, at this point, who cares what he thinks? He's a lame duck president. He's going to leave in 2023. The campaigns for 2023 have already begun. I'm more interested in what Nigerians want from Nigeria. I'm more interested in the vision that Nigerians have for Nigeria. You know, so in a way, a birthday is a time to reflect on, of course, yes, your past, what you've done, but it's also a time to sort of recalibrate for the future. We've been held too long by these old men who, when they started ruling and misgoverning Nigeria, were quite young, but they've held on for 50, 60 years and they're still not doing anything special. So for me, instead of thinking about what Buhari thinks and is doing. How about what do Nigerians think? I'd have loved to hear from the callers. What should we be doing different? Let's not spend any more precious time. Our country is in a state of existential crisis. What do we need to move forward? What vision of the country do we want for ourselves? What questions should we be asking the next set of politicians who are coming? Both the known faces and the unknown faces. What kind of questions should we be asking? What kind of things will we say will give us a good sense? Because we were taken in by lies in 2015 about what Buhari could do and not do. Do we want to be taken in by lies again in 2023? So, people are, in my mind, is a false hope that 2023 is just going to come and magically change everything. I hear or listen with trepidation to the types of people who are being suggested for 2023, and I see no hope. So for me, what do Nigerians want from Nigeria? What's our vision of ourselves? What is our vision of how we will move forward without, in fact, by ignoring these old men? Ignoring them.
All right, Aisha.
I was quite upset by the interview that was done of Babangida on his birthday. We spent too much time looking backwards. These men have nothing useful to share. What is the future? What do we want?
All right, Aisha, thank you very much. It's going to be a question we ask the people when they call in the next batch of questions. What's the vision you hope to see, and how does it happen? How does it happen, Chido Onuma? Most of the callers, hungry and angry. Hungry, literally, when you think about the cost of food in the market. People's take-home pay cannot take them home. How much more take them to the market to buy anything? Their budgets for food has now become supplementary budget that cannot even handle the supplementary items on the list for the grocery or the market. How do people think about going forward, Chido Onuma, when they are hungry and they are angry?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to the callers who made very useful contribution to the conversation. I agree with you and the other members of the panel who say the question we should be asking now is what is to be done. I think it's necessary for us to look beyond Buhari. He has shown, for me, from the very first year of this administration, he showed that he was not oriented and did not have the capacity to lead this country or make Nigeria a great a nation. So going forward, I think the focus, the way I see Nigeria and my own study of the situation on the ground, it's no longer about individuals. I don't know who can take over government today and fix this country in a way that it will work for everybody. And I don't want to sound pessimistic, but even if people come from the terrestrial outside planets to come to try to reposition Nigeria, I'm not sure how much effort can meaningfully work. So I'd rather that we focus on the issues. Just as Aisha mentioned, a lot of the people that are positioning themselves or are being positioned to take over power can't change this country. Is there a way we can then begin that no matter who becomes president, what they should be addressing are the challenges, the existential challenge or crisis we face, whether it's the nature of the structure of our country, the nature of our federation and so on, and say these are 2 key or 3 key issues that whoever comes to power, you have to address this thing. Do we need some kind of conference after 2023 to say we need to sit down as a people to determine how we want this country to go? More than anything else, I think the real threat this country faces is that threat of unity. Even though the political class and the ruling class, when they relate with that question, it's just to make flippant statements about the unity of this country is not negotiable. Everything is negotiable. And the late Bola Ige made this wonderful statement about Nigeria and say there are two fundamental questions we need to ask ourselves as Nigeria. Do we want to remain together as one country? And if we do, under what conditions? So even if we have a great president who would build roads, build the infrastructure, and I was having a conversation with some young people the other day, and the focus was on technology, employment, youth, startups, and I say, great, you do all of these things. You are creating young millionaires in Anambra, in Port Harcourt, in Kanu, in Sokoto. But these young millionaires would never travel. They know more of London, Paris, and Toronto, and New York than they know of next to them. So millionaires who are making progress, financial, people cannot move. You can't decide. As a young man, many years ago, when I graduated from the university and I was serving, and up until when I did my service, little 30 years ago now, the old Borno state and Sokoto states were the only two states I hadn't visited. I was very active in the student movement. I was vice president of NANS, and I did a lot of travel. I was praying and hoping that I would get either Sokoto or Maiduguri so I could beat my chest to say I traveled to every nook and cranny of this country. Lo and behold, when my call-up letter came, I was posted to Maiduguri, I was posted to Borno State, and I did a breakdance. The day I finished my national service, I took a vehicle from Maiduguri to Sokoto, spent days in Sokoto, touring around the Sultan's Palace and getting to know a bit of Sokoto, then took a vehicle from Sokoto to join my family in Lagos. So for me, the fundamental question, it's about the stability of the country.
Right.
It's not just about who takes over the individuals. We can't take that decision here, but we need to understand that we need to look for creative ways to address those fundamental questions.
Right.
We need to answer the Nigerian question, who is a Nigerian, and so on. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Chido. I don't know if anyone is closer to answering the question, but Indicator has worked a lot in trying to see how all of us can be on the same page as a country, and especially how things viewed from the different minority groups. Indy, and a lot of comments I'm seeing here.
Sorry, I think Indy has connection problem.
Oh, okay,
so,
okay.
All right. She sent a note. Yes,
oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right. Whenever Indy joins in, she can have a say also too. So panelists, I'm going to take some questions from WhatsApp. The WhatsApp number again, if you send in questions, would fall to the panelists for them to respond. 0809 597 5805. This is Rotimi from Ota in Ogun State, and he's shocked that the president in his speech included Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Igboho's arrest, but did not mention terrorist bandits or terrorist bandit, he says. Maybe for the sake of federal character, they could have put in those ones also to have a complete picture. I don't know what you think about that, but someone else from this one is from AB from Satellite Town, who says, my take on the president's speech, the question of what he referred to as middlemen and food hoarding is absolutely unreasonable. Where is the food? Is it the ones being frustrated as a result of farmers and headers clashes? Has unsavory words for speech writers also too. Then there's a question here. Joseph Obeta from Shasha, he says, panel has said it all, but my question is, how can youths mobilize like during the EndSARS, politically, and get what they want without choosing between the devil and the deep blue sea? Obeta Joseph. All right, thank you very much. And I'll take one more and let the panelists respond to it. I see a lot of congratulatory messages. By the way, Nigeria Info is also celebrating its 10th year anniversary, so explains this to us. Let's see if I can take in another one. Nothing to celebrate. A lot of people, despondency I see for many messy, and it's understandable when you think about all that we are going through as a nation. Okay, so let's begin with Aisha Osori here. I sort of love the question someone has asked about the youth mobilizing. This has often been a big problem, where a lot of people were shocked by what happened during the NSAS protest, the way it happened, and how people were able to mobilize a lot of young people making demands on police reform. And to an extent, it was successful. 5 for 5, 7 for 7. Those demands got the ears of the government then. But with the political situation, it's a lot different. We're about a year and just a couple of months to the general elections, and it's too quiet for comfort. Aisha.
Well, I hear you, and maybe, two things. We have our population of young people. Someone mentioned is about the majority of our population is 18, and between 18 and 30, or even 18. So they're a huge group who can change, honestly, the direction of the country if they had the will to, which speaks to what we're talking about earlier. Like, what do we want? What do young people want? I would like to think that while you say it's quiet, that maybe they're regrouping, maybe they're learning to do things by stealth, maybe it's strategic. I don't want to think that the quietness is a sign of having given up. I know that many people were very traumatized. So NSAS was a turning point. I've heard people talk about how that after NSAS left the country for good and relocated. I've heard people who, their sense of what it means to be in Nigeria fundamentally changed. But that said, there are things that young people can be doing which we probably don't know anything about, and I think that's fine. But if young people are regrouping, some of the things that they should be thinking about is to make sure, at least for one thing, that they're organizing around different values than what's typically Nigerian. I say that because when we talk about organizing in civil society, you get the sense that we don't mobilize around anything besides using money, which is why we pay for protesters, we pay for people to carry banners, and you see people afterwards fight. So young people need to find a way of bringing themselves together without relying on having to fund themselves. And I think we saw to a large extent what was possible around NSAS, just the feeling of camaraderie, the care. They did show us a different way of organizing and looking after themselves. They should not. I think the second thing for me in terms of young people organizing would be to be wary of influence. And I know the jury is still out, but the fact that they had this, what's the word? No visible head, while it was extremely eating for men and even for people in civil society, they might want to keep that model, develop it a bit more. I think it helps because it makes it, we all know how the military, and the truth is we still have a military mindset in Nigeria, how the military would always use and compromise heads of anything. So not having a visible head who can negotiate in quotes with government or power holders, I think is an excellent strategy that should hold on to, despite all the negative comments and commentary people have given around that. And I think third, it's just for them not to give up. For the majority of us, we can't leave the country. There will be people who are leaving. Of course, it's been in the media constantly. Doctors, nurses, everybody who can go is going. Soon, maybe truck drivers will be in England too to help out with the. You're laughing, it's true. Maybe truck drivers will come to help England sort out their oil fuel distribution problems. But my point is, the majority of us will still not be able to go.
Right.
So we really need to think outside the box. I mentioned in the beginning that we have a crisis of imagination. Nothing makes me sadder than listening to young people and getting the sense that they think that there's one model of being a politician, there's one model of being in power, and it's only the abusive type that we've been experiencing since 1960s that they know of, and they think that's the only way we can be. So you hear people say, can this person win? Is that person legal? And I'm shocked. So I would say, again, let's question our assumptions. Let's question all the myths that we have about what it takes to win elections, be in elections, be politicians. Let's imagine and let's think outside the box. I think for me, those are the three things. If there are any youth movements or young people planning to organize, that would be my sense of what maybe would be useful for them. Thanks.
Absolutely. Way too early to throw in the towel. I think Richard Mama is nodding his head up and down. Perhaps he's got more experience in these things than all of us combined. If you had the opportunity in 30 seconds, Richard, to speak with the youth influencer who is really concerned about what is happening in the country to make a change, like the fellow on WhatsApp was asking, not wanting to run, but still staying, and a number of people saying, find a way out of this dark tunnel. Well, what would you tell such a person?
I will give him my WhatsApp number. No, but more seriously, I think the truth about it is that this is serious business. And so the first thing to do is to sort yourself out, to know that you are engaged in serious business, and then to be determined that you will go ahead with what you want to do, which is to engage, the political system. And then be very, very patient. I see posters of people who come out and say, I want to run for office, 2 months before they are running for office. No, that's not good enough. It's just like running a business. You must do a feasibility. And the truth about it is that it's politics, it's about people. It's a social process. So there's no guarantee you will win at the first attempt.
Right.
So if you're not ready to run 3 times, don't start. If you're not ready to run for 12 years, don't run for the first 4-year cycle, because you don't have the electorate in your pocket. And I think the other point that has made is actually not about money.
Right.
It's about having a program, a vision, a determination, and an understanding that you must be patient and thorough, in the entire process.
Absolutely. So we're streaming this live on YouTube as well as Facebook, so you can head to Nigeria Info's page. In a short while, I will be heading that way. So if you've got comments and questions, I'll pick it up. But let's get back to the phone lines. 0700 993 993 993. Again, 0700 993 993. This time, I take just questions. And I take 3, and then the panelists will respond to them. Hello and good evening.
Hey, good evening.
Okay. Please move away from the device. I know the time was short before you picked up the phone, but now, excellent. What's your name, please, and where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Francis from VR.
All right, Francis, quickly go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't listen to the presidential Independence Day speech anyway, but I've heard a lot from Nigerians, a lot of negative reactions. But I assessed Mr. President 2015. I know it from the onset that the man is not coming to perform. He's not coming to give us a good governance. Anyway, he's just coming for a kind of revenge. Hello, are you with me?
Yeah, we're with you. Please go ahead. Right.
The first step of Mr. President is to jail the son of the man that got him arrested in 1983, which is the son of Sambo Dazuki, alleging that he embezzled billions of dollars. But what had been embezzled under this present administration is more. And we have lost more of our soldiers under this present administration compared to what we had during Goodluck Jonathan. So Mr. President did not come to give us good governance. Rather, he comes for revenge. That's the angle I see this our current president.
All right. No, doesn't see the scorecard as a great one so far. Hello and good evening. All right, no one in there. Hello and good evening.
Hello.
Excellent. Please move away from the device quickly.
Okay, so I really want to talk because what you said is it's not about question right now.
Right.
So I want to know, with the kind of terrain we have here in Nigeria, getting a credible election and winning is very, very difficult. Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Don't worry. Mommy will be with you shortly. Go ahead quickly with the question.
Okay, so I really like to know, because now there's no single candidacy, so we have to go with the political parties that we have around. Again, the electoral process too is somehow not really okay, because with what we're having with the electoral body saying, how do they put it? transmission of results and all that. So that is still under debate and all that. So I don't know how this is going to happen, that we're going to have a very credible election at the end of the day.
All right.
That's my question.
All right. Thank you very much. And Junior can have Mama back. Hello and good evening.
Yeah, Chief Obo.
Good to have you join us, sir.
My name is Mr. Frank. I'm calling from Ojala.
All right, Mr. Frank, let's do this very quickly in a minute.
Hey, okay. Now, Nnamdi Igboho come out, he was arrested. Nnamdi Kanu come out, he was arrested. Asuwere come out, he was attacked. Who is that person that can come now and police himself so that we will know if we can follow him now? Who is that person that we can say, okay, let us follow this person? Are you getting me now?
Yeah, we're with you.
Ahead. Now, let me squeeze another one. My problem in this food aspect, when this cattle rearers was moving before, they was going with knife and stick. No problem. They were going inside the bush. Now they go into people's farm with guns. Who give them that gun? The president is now telling us who give them that gun. Now you know that these people are killing people. You are not thinking about it. They rape people. They do all sorts of people's farm. You don't want to say anything about it. And there is no food in the country. You don't want to say anything about that. What is your plan? I don't know if there's time. I still have one.
You know, you don't have time. I would love to hear also what you think about. I know a lot of you are very concerned about the election 2023, who should be president, and how that should pan out. But I'd love to also hear. Would also love to hear from you what you expect from the country. You know, your vision. Say the next year. So I'll take one more call, and then the panelists can respond quickly. Hello and good evening.
Chief Obo, finally.
Great to have you join us, sir.
Shaku Maku.
Hey, Makushi.
Yeah, our panelists. Good afternoon. Good job you guys are doing. For me, Chief Obo,
right.
I never expect anything from this president. 2 years down the line of this man's government, I said it. Nigerians are taking sight. He will not do us any good. Look at where we find ourselves. I hear everybody complaining now. Oh, I didn't expect this from his speech. You know the soldiers that were killed in Sokoto the other day, right? 2 days ago. Did he mention it? Those that died in Ejibo, where they were made a remark about 29 years ago. Did he mention about it? Then the next day talking about Sunday Igboho and Nnamdi Kanu. The Senate is planning to send a letter to him to proscribe these bandits and whatever, terrorists, right?
Right.
Must they ask him to do that? Like I've been saying, Nigerians, please, we have less than 2 years. This man will go. Nigeria will come back to it. It wasn't like this 6 years ago now. Certainly, additional, I've told you guys that is his style. So we just allow him. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And it was a pleasure to hear from you. All right. So a lot of interesting questions. Richard Mama here. And I'm sure that you're probably thinking... so I'll go on WhatsApp too. On Facebook. Many comments, and those of you who have joined, thank you very much. Remaking Nigeria, 60 years, 60 voices, and that's a book Richard will have for us soon, right?
Yeah, you get within the week.
They get it within the week.
Yeah.
So we're planning to have those books out for the people, beginning from today, but beginning from next week, 60 voices. That book will be out. Something that Chido talked about earlier on, and on all our shows, you'll have the opportunity to have that book in your possession. Mark Ogenetega Romeo says, why did the president's speech not address the electronic transmission of results and how the election will be free and fair? Maybe the National Assembly has something coming up with the Harmonization Committee. Maybe they've woken up from the slumber or this nightmare, and they will put the electronic transmission in when they eventually send a clean copy to the president for assent. There's A.B. Ambo who talks about the killings in Kaduna by herdsmen. The president didn't mention it. He's shocked. And there's a lot of rhetoric he says about secessionist groups and sponsors that he thinks, or she, I don't know whether he or she thinks that it shouldn't have been. Mr. President's speech should have given hope to Nigerians. Didn't see it. But Let's talk about it, Richard Mama, about the president's, about people calling in. And there's a particular comment I saw on WhatsApp, which is tied to one of what somebody's asked, whether Nigerians, after they've elected anyone into office and they know the person cannot deliver, which is what a lot of people seem to be suggesting from the calls, that they knew the president, for example, won't deliver on many of those things, to still expect something to happen. Is it a conundrum that you know the person will not be able to, and you wait and fold your hands for 4 years or 8 years to go by, and then you say, we knew he wouldn't be able to deliver?
Yeah, it's the one they call the catch-22 situation. The people will not deliver, but you also do not have enough leeway to ensure that they get out of the way so that those that can deliver would replace them. It comes to the point, that you maybe, suggesting when you say we should wait for the National Assembly to harmonize whatever they are doing. But this National Assembly has given enough inkling that left to itself, it would prefer to stand with this executive. So you are now faced with two arms of government that are virtually unable to deliver.
Right.
And I think that is part of what has made people to say, hey, this nation needs a brand new constitution, a brand new political structure, so that, and that was why people were saying, let that be done before you get to the point of another election. Because it's difficult to vote out an incumbent, particularly one that has consolidated in terms of holding the institutions of state together.
Right.
So I think that's why people are asking for these fundamental reforms. So what I would say to my people, even on this call, is one very simple thing.
Right.
The president you would have in 2023 is a transitional president. Whichever way the systems pan out, it should be a president that comes in, right, to begin to give us an idea of what a proper nation should be. Because under the circumstances, we can't even get that idea, talk about the practice within the next 1 year.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard Mama. Chido Onuma, interesting discussion we're having here, and a lot of people seem looking towards the 2023 general elections where the president will emerge. I'm sure you've seen this game play on. Compare and contrast former President Goodluck Jonathan with Muhammadu Buhari. Everyone seems to want to say 6 years ago wasn't as bad as this time, or, this thing about compare. Is it enough for people to be upset and angry about what this incumbent president has achieved or failed to achieve in deciding how they will choose the president in 2023?
Well, we have a right to that, of course. And clearly, based on what is on the ground, I don't see how much, and this is not to sound pessimistic, how much role or power Nigerians have to determine what or who is going to emerge as president in 2023. To that extent, what we ought to be thinking of is how do we strengthen the civic space? If we agree that we may not be in a position to determine who would emerge as president, that shouldn't stop us to mobilize in such a way that we can determine what issues that person would have to address. So for me, it goes back to the whole issue of what is to be done, the youth question. And I think part of the challenge, the youth today, and I blame my generation partly for what is happening, but again, you can't completely put the blame on the older generation. As Fanon said, every generation would have to, look at its own situation and understand it and deal with it. What we have, the country is fractured today and is telling in every aspect of our national life, even in the question of mobilizing. And we saw what happened during NSAS. It was easy for, and I don't know how much analysis has gone into why it was so easy for people, young people in the southern part of the country to mobilize, why you had pockets of young people in the North doing the same. It was so easy for the government to take advantage of the poverty, unemployment, and so on, to infiltrate these groups, pay them, and also then ultimately use them to stop this protest. So one of the things I would recommend, or my advice to young people, is to find a way, while the political class, which is what they've done over the years, the whole divide and rule tactics. So we have Northern Governors Forum, we have Southern Governors Forum. You want, even for those who sympathize and say, oh, the presidency of the country for the sake of unity and equity should come to the South. Even if that happens, you ask yourself, if the president of the country comes from the South, so what? It's not as if this president of the South will going to change anything for majority of Nigerians. So Olusegun Obasanjo is from the South. He was he was president of Nigeria for 8 years.
Yes.
Goodluck Jonathan is from the southern part of the country. He was governor of the, why am I saying governor?
Interesting,
he was president of Nigeria.
Yeah. He was also governor
he was
too.
governor of Bayelsa, but he was president of Nigeria. Go to Bayelsa State and see what Bayelsa State is. The east-west road. There is no access road. So it's not really about where the president comes from. Having said that, that's not to lessen the impact of the need for equity in distribution of political office. And it's because then the question will be, if the political class agrees that the president we need to rotate this thing for the sake of unity, the question.
Oh, all right. Sorry, looks like we lost connection with Chido, but thank you very much. I mean, the point is made about just what exactly or not rotation presidency is. I usually would say, I thought it was touch and go. Put it in there and then quickly get on to the more important issues about the competency of the candidates, rather than build a hot or Hamlet on that one. If Aisha's story is still there, we quickly get her comment on this one, and then I can get Rotimi Sankore in very quickly. Aisha had asked the question about what people should be thinking of. It was Ade from Surulere who writes. Yeah. All right. So sorry about that, Chido. But let's move on quickly to Aisha. Ade from Surulere writes, says, my take with the youth is not to be discouraged by what happened with the NSAS. They fight on, face all these governments.
Sorry, I think my connection went off briefly. Can you hear me?
Yes, Chido, we got the point, but exactly. Thank you very much. Yeah. So we want to get Aisha's take on something someone wrote in from Surulere Ade, who says that the youth should infiltrate. I like the way you use the word infiltrate 2 major political parties, take over them with their numbers. Politics is a game of numbers. We must overthrow all of them. I thought we meant by elect them into it, but he says overthrow them come 2023. He calls them corrupt failures, and it goes on. He says the youth should insist on electronic voting, transmission, and nothing else! Exclamation mark. Politicians must listen to the people and not themselves. Aisha, infiltrate the 2 political parties, huh?
I think that's a great idea, and I think I've advocated for that. I'm not sure if the person who wrote from Surulere has read my book Love Doesn't Win Elections, but I've said more than once and on many public platforms that I'm definitely an advocate for us to join the political parties, the major ones particularly, or all political parties. I think many people should be. You see, we have the culture, and I'm quite sure it's deliberate, of sort of leaving politics to the politicians in quotes. But in other societies, as young as 16, you have youth. Those are the real youth wing, not in Nigeria where you have a 60-year-old man, representing the youth in a party. But you have even young wings for people who, even before they can vote, you hear about Hillary Clinton and how she used to be a Republican and how she used to campaign for Richard Nixon and all sorts of things, which speaks to training, orientation, knowledge, which we build up. So we need to become intentionally more political animals, so to speak, all of us, in a very more deliberate way, especially since our student unions in university have been destroyed by the military deliberately, because they know exactly that when young people can organize in a safe intellectual academic environment, they become like a force of the nation. So they deliberately destroy that with drugs, with infiltrated, SSS, DSS, whatever they were called, NSO, with pirates and with cultism, and destroyed that system. And we're still trying to rebuild it. So I agree with that person 100%. But here's the caveat that I make. I agree, join the parties in numbers. Misery loves company. If enough of us join these parties and the ward meetings and this and that, and we're forcing ourselves to be delegates, fantastic. The caveat I always say is, and if you find that you cannot join these parties, because my sense is that when many of us start knocking on the doors to join the parties, and I document again how difficult it is to actually join a party, you like to think with the way technology has made everything easy, that you go online, you click, you can find your ward. If you want to join PDP, if you want to join APC, all you have to do is go online or put in a code and they'll tell you, oh, you live in Surulere, here's where your ward party is, this is your ward chair, this is their number, this is their email. We don't have that. They deliberately make it hard for you to join the party. So I've also advocated that if enough of us, for example, between now and the elections in 2023, start trying to join the parties, and we document how hard it is to join those parties, for me, that should be a way to say, if we can't join you, then you definitely not vote for you. We really need to start thinking beyond these two parties, and we need to start trying to force them to change from within.
Absolutely.
If I can't join you, why should I vote for you? So if you make it hard for millions of Nigerians to join APC and PDP, but you see, we have to be flooding, we have to be trying to join. And then we can now say, we tried to join, you wouldn't let us, we are not getting our vote. And we document that.
All right. Thank you.
So I think it's fantastic. We need to think outside the box, and that's one way to do that.
All right. Thank you very much, Aisha. And the only one person we haven't had his voice, I'm sure people have been yearning to hear his voice, Rotimi Sankore, co-host the Public Square as well as data and development expert. Rotimi.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a difficult day for many Nigerians, to be quite frank.
I see that again.
It's a very difficult day. Well, let me try and summarize my take. I mean, it was important to hear the panelists. I mean, the audience hears you and I every Friday. So I think the president's speech is always important because it tells us what to expect, or if to expect anything at all. And today's speech tells us there is a big disconnect between government policy and reality. I mean, you can see for yourself, the speech did not prioritize youth development and skills. It did not prioritize key issues like electricity that can ensure sustainable jobs. The poverty alleviation is based around superficial fixes like earn power and farmer money, and to the extent that the economy is import dependent, the value of the naira to the dollar is crucial. And he didn't say anything about that. I mean, beyond the government blaming Aboki FX, there seems to be no solution. I mean, if one website can crash the naira, why doesn't the government put on its own website declaring that a dollar is equal to 1 naira? Yeah, and then we head in the right direction. I mean, and just to touch on some key areas of the speech. Look, the government, the president, the people who write the speech, it's like they don't understand public policy development investments. Look at on COVID. The president is asking us, the citizens, should another pandemic arise in the future? Our question is simple. Will Nigeria be ready? The president is asking us, the citizens, to answer that question. How? The president said he has directed ministries of finance, budget, national planning, health, education, science, and technology to start developing our pharmaceutical and vaccine capacity. Like they don't know that it is academics and scientists that do the research, not the Minister of Health or the Minister of Education, both of whom are fighting the health sector and ASU. I mean, really, how can the Minister of Health or Education do the research without the researchers? And I think that on insecurity, we just got the worst of it today. The president said we are taking the fight to our enemies from all angles. And that we are winning. How? All angles. The underdevelopment that is driving the insecurity has not been fixed. So the government is actually not taking the fight to insecurity from all angles. Look, at the height of the Boko Haram insurgency, the data from the states and the MBS was telling us 83% and 63% of all males, 83% and 63% of all males in Yobe and Borno had not had access to education. Has that changed? We have 100 million people living in poverty, 60 million unable to read or write, mainly in the northern part of Nigeria. 13 million out of school. Okay, the government claims it's 10 million. 70% of children that start primary school are not able to transit to secondary school. The birth rate is 7 to 12 children per woman, through, which is imposing gender-based poverty on girls and women. In the Northwest and most of the Northeast, 16 to 32 children per man. 16 to 32 children per man, which underlines the reproductive violation and abuse of girls and women. Has that been addressed? There is zero recognition of the connection between population and development. That since independence, Nigeria's population has grown by 160 million. While UK and France, that were the same population with us in 1960, of 45 million each, those countries have only grown by about 25 million people each. And Nigeria has grown by 160 million in the same period. So it's easy to see why we have over 50% hunger and malnutrition in Katsina and Zamfara. Why we have large ungoverned spaces where bandits can recruit hundreds or thousands of youths. The president says all angles. Have those angles been covered? Obviously not. Obviously not. So, unless these issues are addressed, it is clear that, the federal government and the governors are just wasting our time. And look, all this unnecessary focus on diversion. The president says that the media houses and commentators must move away from reporting irresponsible remarks because it's those remarks that lead to violence. Look, everybody in this country knows there is no single act of banditry or terrorism in this country that has been a result of a media report. None. Katsina and Zamfara that have been overrun, is that caused by media reports? Boko Haram overrunning Northeast, was that caused by media reports? The separatist movement in Southwest or Southeast, is that caused by media reports?
To be interesting, Rotimi, to see with the blanket ban on communication, when they eventually leave those ban, whether the numbers will drop and they will blame telecommunication for increasing.
Of course not. They've just condemned the Northwest to the dark ages. This shutting down telecom in Katsina, in Zamfara, in parts of Kaduna, in parts of Sokoto, and so forth. Look, the president says, he talks about the diversifying the economy, and then follows the sentence by saying from oil to gas. From oil to gas. Is that diversification? From frying pan to fire? The industrialization of US, China, Germany, or South Korea is based on human capacity and innovation, not oil or gas. And in any case, as it happens, Nigeria is still flaring gas. And the price of domestic gas is going up. And all these things, none of them addresses a real solution on food insecurity. Did he talk about the disruption of famine by armed herders and bandits? Or the poor investment in agriculture? Or that even what is produced cannot be stored or processed? Because no electricity. We have a 95% deficit in our electricity production. The global sustainable development standard is 1,000 megawatts per 1 million people. We should be at 206,000 megawatts. We're at 5,000. Less often than that. So people can't process the food. Yet, look, this blaming of middlemen has been going on since 1983. Where are the middlemen storing this food? The middleman, he says, the government is trying to build on the digital economy. The biggest corporations globally are technology companies. In another sentence, he negates that immediately by saying the ban on Twitter will be lifted if they meet the government demand.
Right.
You think that Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, and all those trillion-dollar companies would have grown to that level if they were being banned every time somebody like Donald Trump posts something and that post is removed? Of course not. And lastly, on the poverty alleviation, I mean, this is really where the speech fails the most. 33% unemployment, 22% underemployment, 60 million unable to write or read. What kind of jobs are those people going to get? Tens of millions of women condemned to lifelong dependence and poverty through forced child marriage and being forcibly impregnated to have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 children from when they are 13 years old. Which purchasing power are they going to have when they've been forced into a life of poverty? The president talked about girls' education, but can the girls themselves stand up and say they are going to school? Did the federal government come out and say forced child marriage has been banned, or did the state say so? And by the way, it's not only a northern problem. The forced child marriage is 50% in Bayelsa, 1 in 2.
Right.
So when you say you are empowering girls for education, but the girls are not able to go to school, now it is important, because if you look at Afghanistan, for instance, these are the key drivers that brought the Taliban to power. Many people forget that up to the time the Taliban were removed in 2001, there was hardly one girl in secondary school in Afghanistan. If you go to my Twitter feed at Rotimi Sankore and just scroll down, you will see where, UNESCO was talking about it. UNESCO made the point up to 2001, hardly any girl in secondary school. And that means that the Taliban forced the girls through reproductive violence to breed millions of young men that have become the social base of the Taliban. That's where the bandits are coming from.
Right.
So the supply chain of the bandits has to be broken by empowering girls and women to go to school.
Very true. So, Rotimi,
and uphold their reproductive health and rights. So, unless the government, really addresses all these things, I'm sorry, I'm just looking forward to 2023.
Yes.
Look, it's clear. Nigeria needs a big ideological shift to political parties and candidates that can invest in human capacity, youth development, gender-based inclusion, technology, innovation, basics like electricity, all these north-south thing people are talking about. What's the meaning of that? Anyway, I'm sure we'll have enough time on subsequent programs, But it is really important that we pay attention to these things. If not, unless we pay attention to the key things, then we get carried away.
Absolutely.
With the diversion from the president or from the governors.
Thank you very much. And just like Rotimi said, there's never enough time to talk about these things. Rolling conversation. And we hope to coin Aisha Osuri's illustration or thinking that we've stirred the imagination pot to the extent people will begin to think about reactions and consequences of failing to take seriously, things like the elections and their role in this democratic journey we're in. But thank you very much. First and foremost to our partners, Afric Mill, Ford, and Osiwa. And of course, our fantastic panelists this evening. Thank you very much, Indicato. Thank you very much, Richard Mama. Thank you also, Aisha Osuri. And Chido Onuma, thank you very much also too.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Agoho, for a very good moderation. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I wish you all the best.
Absolutely.
Stay well until our 62nd birthday. Hopefully. It'll be better.
And we'll get out the scorecards.
May I ask? I hope the 60 Voices book, 60 Voices, 60 Years, will be available for listeners and callers from Monday.
Richard says from Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay,
Tuesday,
because
yeah,
the Africa Center for Media Literacy, Media and Information Literacy, led by Chido, is making 60 copies available for listeners.
Yes, they are. There are some logistic challenge. If not, the books would have been at the studio.
Okay, great book. I've read it. I recommend it to you.
Excellent.
60 Voices, 60 Years.
Excellent. It will make a fantastic gift, especially for Nigeria Info, which is 10 today also too. For all the millions of callers and people who tune in daily to hear our programs, I'm sure you probably want to have that as a collector's item. Thank you very much, Chido, also too.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having us on the platform. Once again, thanks to Siwa and Aisha for making this possible.
Excellent.
Our pleasure. Well done.
Excellent.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
All right. Okay, so at the top of the hour, we have the news up, the main news, and after the news, we'll have Ifeanyi and Sami. They have a 61st Independence Anniversary edition of Music and Moments. I wonder what they'll take us through Nostalgia Avenue this time around. 99.3 Nigeria Info. I am Arogo Obo. Bye-bye.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.